So today is Thursday the 18th of August 2011, and I'm just standing outside a little park here called Washington Commons, which is just right 1 block away from the hotel where I'm staying. So right now it's about 11:30 in the morning, and I got a little bit of a slow start this morning. My original plan was to get up super early and try and stand in line for the Statue of Liberty, for the ferry to the Statue of Liberty, but I set my alarm for 6 o'clock and just wasn't in the mood for waking up that early, just because I had kind of a little bit of a late night getting all my video from yesterday together, and it was quite a long day too, walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, and after doing all that I wasn't home until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, so it was good to get a good night's sleep and a little bit of a sleep in this morning. But anyways, so I'm not going to do the Statue of Liberty this morning as planned, obviously, and my day today is going to be mostly in Midtown on the west side, so I'll be bringing the camera with me everywhere and showing all the interesting things that I stop and see. Yesterday, as I went to the Container Store, I bought this orange milk crate, and I have it very nicely fastened with zip ties, black zip ties that I bought from that hardware store yesterday. So my bike's all set now to be a proper milk crate bike, the way that I like to travel. And having this here means I can put my backpack in the crate while I'm riding, and it means I don't have to have it on my back for the whole day. And yesterday it was relatively hot, and when you're carrying a backpack on your back, it kind of insulates your back, and you end up getting a really sweaty back from carrying this thing around in the day. Anyways, I'm going to get on the road and start exploring. So I've just returned now from day 2 of my adventures traveling around New York City, and just like on day 1, I took my handheld camera with me pretty much everywhere that I went, and I took lots of little filmed clips that I did while I was out and about, and so now I'm just going to narrate and talk about what I did during my day, and while I'm talking, I'm going to edit in all of those little clips when I do the editing back when I get home. So just like I did yesterday, so hopefully it works out well when I do that editing. But anyway, so the video clip that you just saw was me in the morning, or just barely the morning, when I was just starting to get moving. And so after I got on the road with my bike and my brand new installed milk crate, so from that spot I made my way uptown to Midtown, to where I was going, to where most of the sites that I was going to see were. So to get there, I took 10th Avenue, and I learned about how the numbered streets worked, and I really enjoyed using those to travel around. It's a really convenient system how it's laid out compared to what I was dealing with yesterday when I was traveling around in Lower Manhattan, where all the streets are the original Dutch streets, or at least some of them were originally settled by the Dutch, and they're all named, and they don't necessarily meet each other at 90 degrees, and there's still lots of one-way streets in there, and it's really confusing. If you want to get from A to B, you have to sort of, if you don't have a map or you don't know the area, you sort of have to guess, and you got to figure out, okay, well, I'm kind of going to go west, oh, but that street goes the wrong way, and it's just a little bit more confusing. But uptown it was much easier, or Midtown much easier on the number of streets. So anyways, I took 10th Avenue all the way up to 42nd Street, and 42nd Street is a really big and busy street where there's a lot going on. It's actually a two-way street, where most of the other numbered streets are one-way. So anyway, so I turned at 10th Avenue and I just started going along, and there's tons of things I saw along the way. Lots of touristy sort of things. I saw Madame Tussauds wax museum, where they have inside there they have all the lots of celebrities made up in wax. I didn't go inside any of the really touristy sort of things. I just appreciated the outside of them, and enjoyed being outside in the nice weather that we had today. So the Madame Tussauds, they had Ripley's, believe it or not. They had a big McDonald's that had a big, huge sign above it, bigger than you'd see at a normal McDonald's in a strip mall or something. And they also had a Cold Stone Creamery outlet, which also had a Tim Hortons inside it, which I was a little bit surprised to see. I didn't expect I'd be seeing Canadian chain Tim Hortons in Manhattan. So anyways, continuing on 42nd Street, you get to, I believe it's 7th Avenue, where 42nd Street makes up the bottom part of the Times Square. So I turned at Times Square and I went, kind of stood in the middle of it and took everything in. It's a really busy and interesting place. There's so much going on. There's billboards all on every side, big bright flashing things going on everywhere, and there's lots of people in there pretty much doing the same thing I was doing, just trying to take it all in. It was really neat there. And that was the first time I actually, because just standing there in one spot, you couldn't really take it all in. So I tried out for the first time on this trip my helmet cam. I have a helmet. I brought two helmets with me, and one of my helmets has a little bracket on the top where I can put my my camera in. So I tested that out just for here, and it turned out all right. There's a little bit of shakiness that goes on up here, which I don't like, but it still gives you the idea of what it's like to travel through Times Square. So anyways, continuing on, I went back up to 42nd Street, and I continued going across town, and I saw the Bank of America Tower building, which is a very tall building. It's actually the second tallest building in Manhattan right now, second only to the Empire State Building, and it will be third after the One World Trade Center building is completed. But right now it's number 2, and I got some nice shots of that. It's got a neat top to it. It's kind of got this flat little like a little flake kind of thing that sticks up like a rooster or something. And right across from there was the New York Public Library, which is a really old building and has these big columns and white limestone, and it's very large. It was neat to see that. And behind the library, there's a park called Bryant Park, which I rode around in a little bit and looked around and saw everything that was going on. There was a nice big fountain there in that park, and I saw people playing chess in the park, which is something we see in the movies for New York City, but not something I had really ever seen before. So I saw that, and they also had right closer to the library, they had a piano player who was playing just in the park, and that was neat to see too. And there was someone dancing along to the music, or an older fellow that was trying to encourage a younger little child to dance, which was entertaining to watch. So anyways, from there I decided I had gone as far across 42nd Street as I wanted to do today. I had some things on the east side of Manhattan that I'm going to do on a different day, like including the Chrysler Building, which I didn't see today, but that's to come, so stay tuned. So from there I decided the next place I wanted to go to was the Brill Building, which I think was on 45th Street, which is a few blocks up from 42nd. So I went along the avenue there, and I came across, and along the way I saw this neat fountain that's sort of a walkway through between two buildings that has this neat little fountain going on. So I took some shots of that. Anyways, when I got to the Brill Building, it was really neat for me to see that Brill Building. There's a lot of significance to that building. It's a building that's been around for quite a few years, and it's got a lot of history in the music business. So when it was I don't know if right when it was first built, but in the early 1900s, in the days of when sheet music was really the thing that was going on in the music industry. They had a lot of publishing houses, I think, that were up in that building, and there's a lot going on. But in the 1960s, it was particularly the early 1960s, like 1963 sort of time. There's a lot of popular music that came out of there, with a lot of some of it involving the producer Phil Spector, who I'm really a big fan of a lot of the work that he did in those years. And And in that building they had offices where songwriters would come. So there are people that, often couples, two people that would work together, and they'd just be in a room all day, and they just write songs, and they just have a sort of piano there or something, and they'd write a song, and then they would just write it in sheet music, and then they'd kind of just put them in a big pile, and then they would bring musical acts in to play, and they didn't write their own songs, so they just went through this stack of music that had been written, and they kind of just chose one that would be right for that group. And that's how it worked. And they also had their own recording studio in there. So really the whole song was produced there. It was written by someone upstairs, and then it was taken right into the studio. They brought musicians into the studio, and they recorded it. And then it was out on the street, and it was sold. And a lot of really big hits, #1 hits even, came out of that building. So for me, it was really neat to see. It's a really nice looking building, really old. And it has this gold framing around the doorway, and old marble surfaces on the building as well. And I actually walked inside the lobby of the building. There was no signs that said you weren't allowed to, so I just walked my way in, and inside the building it was really neat too. There was always big mirrors on the walls, and there was more of that gold stuff there. And so I kind of just went in there kind of inconspicuously and just kind of looked around, and didn't really try and talk to anybody, and I just kind of quickly made a U-turn when I saw someone else coming. And as I was walking out, I was still filming, inside there, and a guy told me that I really shouldn't be filming in there, and I shouldn't let anyone see that I was filming, because it was a historic building, and you're not really supposed to film in there for whatever reason. But it was interesting. I kind of stopped and talked to him for a little bit, and he told me he worked in that building, and he told me about how lots of big stars, even to this day, come through there and still use the recording facilities there. And I guess they still have songwriting that goes on there as well. So that was neat. So after that, I headed over to Rockefeller Center.